Okay, essay number 3. You want to make sure that you have it submitted, a rough draft you want to submit to 2 places. You want to submit it to the discussion board for week 9, and you want to submit it to the assignment that's in the week 9 folder. Then you are going to do a peer review for everybody who is in your group. So that's usually about 2 people. So you're going to do a peer review for 2 people. The difference for this peer review, other than that you have to do 2 of them, is that there are 3 questions that you have to answer, and then you have to answer the 2 questions that are asked by the person who wrote the essay. So when you post your rough draft, you want to include 2 questions that you want others to respond to. So there's a total of 5 questions that you're dealing with for each person. Okay, the idea with this essay is that you are dealing with this concept of justice. In fact, you're dealing with a specific type of justice: retributive, distributive, and corrective justice. These are all different types of justice, so you have to deal with or pick, you're going to focus on one of those. You're also going to try to focus on one group or actor or element involved in whichever situation or topic you have picked. You will end up talking about all of the different groups, right? So if I'm talking about the NFL one, I'm going to talk about the players. I'm going to talk about distributive justice, right? So I'm going to talk about how the players need distributive justice. I'm going to talk about also, as I'm writing this, how that will affect the league, how that will affect owners, how that will affect fans. So in effect, you will be dealing with all the groups, but you want to pick an initial group that you're going to basically apply a certain type of justice to their situation. This is the basics for the essay, right? You want to have a thesis statement, which I'll talk about in a moment, but the thesis statement basically is you're presenting the type of justice you're going to focus on and this as a solution to whatever the problem is and who you are going to be dealing with. That's your thesis. So the very first thing to do is establish the situation for whoever has been harmed, right? Because the whole idea with justice is that you're using justice to help someone who has been harmed or wronged in some way. So your first section of your essay could be devoted to discussing, describing, and detailing which group or who has exactly been harmed in your situation, right? NFL players or student debt, people with student debt. So that's one whole section. Next whole section is you can talk about a particular type of justice that will best help this group. So something else to think about is that you can explain why the other types of justices won't really work, right? So you're trying to get deeper into the subject. You don't just want to write 2 sentences and go, distributive justice would be best for NFL players. You're trying to really develop it, since it's going to be like a third of your essay. And one of the ways to do that is to discuss why the other types of justices do not work as well. Then you talk about how to implement this type of justice, like with an actual plan of how here's what would need to go down, and here's who would get paid when, and here's how the rules would change, and here's when the rules would change, and so on. So you're trying to come up with how this type of particular justice that you've chosen will work, like how you're going to get it to help fix the. All right, so developing a thesis statement for essay 3. Okay, so the thesis needs to present a couple of things, right? Or needs to include a few things. So it needs to have the type of justice that you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on one of the 3 types of justice. You want to talk about how this, or you want to include somehow how this type of justice is going to help the problem or help the person or group or whoever's been harmed by the situation. And then one of the things that I tell people is that sometimes it can help to make yourself create a thesis statement that includes the word because. It forces you to basically take a position and then give reasons. And you can obviously always change the thesis statement as you go. So here's my example. So distributive justice is needed to restore the college system in America because this will make sure that the burdens and benefits of a college education are shared more equally. Okay, so I have my because in there, and that's my general thing, my general argument that I'm going to say, right? That college education is not just beneficial for the people who have one, but for the whole society. And so making them have this debt, which cripples them, is a ridiculous thing, Another example I made up. Corrective justice must be applied to the way social media is gathering and selling people's private data, because large and powerful companies only change behavior when their finances are affected and when new rules are implemented. So this would be me doing a different subject altogether, but it would be about social media and how corrective justice is basically about punishing, right? So you're going to punish Facebook by giving them an incredibly high dollar amount fine, and then you're going to make new rules and regulations that they have to follow, something like that. You want your thesis statement to be clear and strong. Basically, you want a thesis that is taking a position or drawing some sort of conclusion regarding the system of justice you choose and the group of people you will focus on. As for the supporting ideas, you want these to then explain or support your thesis, and your topic sentences should be the first sentence of the paragraph that will develop each idea. So to do this, you want to include a clear indication of the justice you'll be dealing with. So below is an example I have written in order to help people as they develop a thesis statement and topic sentences. So here's my example. I just basically tried to write down, I did the student loan debt thing, right? So I tried to write down everybody who's possibly involved in the situation, right? Parents, schools, obviously students, banks, the government, companies. I'm going to deal with distributive justice. I need to figure out who's being hurt. The group of people who are being harmed are the students. And then I'm going to try to create a thesis statement. In addition to using the word because, or instead of, depends, using while as a beginning word can also help sort of shape whatever your statement is into a thesis, right? While college students are somewhat aware of the financial commitment they make when they enroll in college, the principles of distributive justice reveal that the students are bearing more and more of the burden within the system of higher education and realizing fewer and fewer benefits. So, and I would even argue that that's sort of a setup, and then this is the actual, this is phrased more like a thesis statement. So I would, in my mind, this is all the setup for the thesis, and then I put the thesis after it. Because it actually sets out, you know what I mean? So this, like the first part's just setting it up, being like, here's the situation that's happening. You know, more burden, less benefit for students, and then might come out and say, this is the type of justice that we need to restore the value of education.